He adjusted the candle in the center of the table for the third time before I even sat down. The flame kept tilting slightly to the left because of the air conditioning, and he kept turning the glass holder like that would fix it. When he noticed me watching, he smiled in that careful way, like he had already rehearsed the moment. I took my seat across from him and placed my bag beside the chair. He said he hoped I liked the place, that he had been planning this for weeks. He pointed out the view, the timing of the reservation, the way the staff had arranged everything ahead of time. There was a small wrapped box already sitting next to my plate, tied neatly with a ribbon that matched the napkins. It was thoughtful. That was the problem. He had never been careless, but this felt different, precise, measured, like he had studied what a perfect anniversary should look like and followed it step by step. I thanked him. I smiled. I let him pull my chair in slightly, like he used to when things were simple. But I kept noticing things. The way he kept checking my reaction instead of just being present. The way he filled every small silence with another detail about how much effort he had put into the night. The way his phone was turned face down but still close enough for him to glance at without making it obvious. Too perfect. That's how I knew something was wrong. Dinner started quietly. He ordered for both of us, which he rarely did. He remembered everything I liked, down to how I preferred my drinks slightly less sweet. It should have felt comforting. Instead, it felt like he was proving something. Halfway through the appetizer, he reached for my hand and said he knew he hadn't always been consistent, but he wanted to do better. He said this year meant a lot to him. He said he wanted us to feel solid. Us. I nodded. I let my hand stay in his, but I had already started paying attention. Not that night, earlier than that. A few weeks before, he had begun to change in ways that were small enough to ignore if I wanted to. He started replying a little slower. He was suddenly busier in ways he couldn't clearly explain. He still showed up, still texted good morning, still asked about my day. But something about it felt maintained, like he was keeping something steady instead of living inside it. Around that time, he also became more attentive in bursts. Random gifts, long messages about how much I meant to him, plans for the future that felt slightly out of rhythm with everything else. It didn't match. People don't pull away and lean in at the same time unless there's a reason. So I stopped asking him directly. I just watched. I noticed that he always stepped outside to take certain calls, even when we were alone. I noticed that he started locking his phone again after months of leaving it open around me. I noticed that there were moments when he seemed distracted, like he was mentally somewhere else, and then quickly returning when he realized I was looking. Nothing obvious, nothing I could point to. But patterns don't need proof immediately. They just need time. A few days later, I borrowed his laptop while mine was updating. He didn't hesitate when I asked, which almost made it easier. If he had been defensive, I might have stopped. Instead, I opened it casually, like I always had. His messages were synced there. I didn't search for anything specific at first. I just scrolled. And then I saw a name I didn't recognize. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't labeled strangely. Just a normal name in the middle of other conversations, but the frequency stood out. I opened it. At first, it looked harmless. Daily conversation, small check-ins, shared details about routines, meals, work. The kind of rhythm people fall into when they're consistently talking. Then I scrolled further. Plans, not vague ones, specific ones. He had told her about a trip he wanted to take, a place he had never mentioned to me. He had described how he imagined it would feel, how he thought she would like it. He told her he missed her when they hadn't seen each other for a few days. He told her he was working through some complicated things, but that he wanted something real with her. I kept reading. There was no point where it clearly started, no moment where it shifted from casual to serious. It had just grown into something that already existed fully. That was the part that stayed with me. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't impulsive. It was built. I closed the laptop exactly how I had found it. When he came back into the room later, I handed it to him and thanked him for letting me use it. He smiled, kissed my forehead, and asked what I wanted for dinner. Everything looked normal again. so I let it stay that way. Over the next week, I paid closer attention, but I didn't change how I acted. I still responded the same way. I still met him when we had plans. I still let him believe everything was steady. It gave me clarity. He wasn't just talking to her. He was maintaining both of us carefully. He told me he was busy on nights he was clearly with her. He told her he was sorting out his situation, which meant me. He used different versions of himself for each of us, but the effort was equal. That's how I knew she wasn't temporary. She was part of his future, just like I was supposed to be. A few days before our anniversary, he confirmed the dinner reservation with me. He sounded excited, almost relieved. That's when I understood what the night was. It wasn't a celebration. It was reassurance. For himself. Maybe for me. Maybe for both of us. So I made a decision. I didn't confront him. Not then. Instead, I found her. It wasn't difficult. He had mentioned enough details in their messages. Her work, her schedule, the places she went regularly. It only took a little time to connect everything. When I reached out, I kept it simple. I told her who I was. I told her I wasn't reaching out to argue or accuse. I just wanted clarity, and I thought she deserved it too. She didn't respond immediately, but later that night, she did. She said she had suspected something didn't fully add up. She said he had told her he was dealing with a past relationship that was complicated, that nearly over. She asked me how long we had been together. I told her. There was a long pause after that. Then she said she didn't know. Not in a defensive way, just factual. We spoke for a while after that, calmly, carefully, like two people comparing notes rather than confronting each other. By the end of the conversation, everything was clear. He hadn't lied in obvious ways. He had just told different versions of the truth to each of us, enough to keep both of us. The day of the anniversary, I got ready slowly. I chose a dress he liked. I did my makeup the way I usually did for special occasions. Nothing different. Nothing that would suggest anything had changed. When I arrived at the restaurant, he stood up immediately. He looked relieved when he saw me. That was the word that kept coming back, relieved. Dinner started the same way it had in the beginning. Careful, thoughtful, slightly rehearsed. He gave me the gift before the main course arrived. It was something I had mentioned months ago in passing. He remembered. I thanked him. I meant it. Then I told him I had a small surprise too. He looked confused, but he smiled. He said he liked surprises. I checked my phone briefly. She said she was outside. I told him I would be right back and stood up from the table. He asked where I was going, but I just said I would be back in a second. When I walked out, she was standing near the entrance. She looked exactly how I expected. Not in appearance, but in presence. Calm, slightly tense but composed. We didn't say much. There wasn't anything left to clarify. I just asked if she was ready. She nodded. We walked back in together. The restaurant was quiet enough that our footsteps felt louder than they were. When we reached the table, he looked up. At first, he didn't understand. He looked at me, then at her, then back at me again, like he was trying to place something that didn't fit. I pulled my chair out and sat down. She stayed standing for a second before taking the empty seat beside me. No one said anything immediately. He asked what was going on, but his voice wasn't steady anymore. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at her and then back at him. It didn't take long. You could see it in his face when it clicked. Not all at once. Gradually. Recognition, understanding, then realization. He started explaining, quickly at first, then more slowly when he realized there wasn't a version of the story that would work anymore. He said things were complicated. He said he was trying to figure things out. He said he didn't want to hurt anyone. She listened. I listened. Neither of us interrupted, because there wasn't anything left to argue about. At some point, he stopped talking. The silence that followed was heavier than anything he had said. She asked him how long, not angrily, just directly. He answered. I watched her process it. Then she asked him about the plans he had made with her, the trip, the future he had described. He hesitated. That hesitation said more than anything else. I stood up before either of them could continue. I placed my napkin on the table and picked up my bag. He looked at me like he was about to say something, but I didn't wait for it. There was nothing he could say that would change what had already happened. I told him to stay, not as a command, just a suggestion, because leaving would have been easier for him, and this wasn't about making it easier. I looked at her once before I left. She understood. When I walked out of the restaurant, the air outside felt cooler than I expected. I didn't rush. I didn't look back. I just kept walking until the noise of the restaurant faded behind me. A few days later, he tried to reach out. Messages at first, then calls. He said he wanted to explain properly. He said he had made a mistake. He said he didn't know how things got that far. I read the messages once, then I stopped. There was nothing left to understand. She didn't contact me again after that night. She didn't need to. We had already said everything that mattered. Life went back to its usual rhythm slowly. Work, routine, small habits filling in the spaces that used to belong to him. It wasn't difficult in the way people expect. It was quiet, clear, like closing a door that had already been halfway shut. Sometimes I think about that night. Not the dinner itself, but the moment everything became visible. Not because it hurt, but because it was the first time I saw everything exactly as it was, without anything softened or hidden. He tried to give me a perfect night. I just made sure it was an honest one.